Better late than never, I guess you would say, here on the Kaufman Corner podcast. With you, as always, David Lesky from Inside the Crown, Les Norman from Breaking the Norm, of course, former Royals outfielder. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB. Going to be talking about Cole Ragans hitting the injured list. What does this mean for the Royals' chances of continuing to compete? How much does it hurt them? Do they have an answer in-house? Do they have to look to make a trade? Should they even be considering making a trade, right? Or is this a team that needs to be looking more towards the future? Ooh, nobody wants to hear that, right? Is it time for them to sell? Matt Quatraro, how much blame does he deserve for these frustrating times for Royals fans? We're talking about it right now here on the Kaufman Corner podcast.
You're listening to the Kaufman Corner podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Royals, breaking down the Royals like no one else can. Kaufman Corner is hosted by David Lesky, Les Norman, and Soren Petro. David Lesky is an accomplished author and the publisher of the Inside the Crown Royals baseball newsletter. Les Norman is a former Royals outfielder. He's the host of Breaking the Norm with Les Norman on Sports Radio 810 WHB, as well as the author of Teaching the Tools of Hitting. Soren is the award-winning afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. Kaufman Corner is proudly brought to you by David Starnes Allstate Insurance, covering all the important things in your world. Home, business, life, and even the fun stuff as well. Motorcycle, boat, ATV, you name it, get with Dave and he'll have you covered. Give Dave and his crew a call at 816-781-7331. Visit them online or stop into any of their locations, including North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. Don't put those insurance needs off any longer. Get with Dave today. He'll give you peace of mind for the things in your life most important to you. Now, here are your hosts, David Lesky, Les Norman, and Soren Petro.
Thank you very much, Curtis. We do appreciate it. Off and running here on the Kaufman Corner podcast. And I'm going to just fess up from the beginning. We're having like an interesting little technical situation. I don't even know if anybody else can see it but us. Our sound is fine, but every now and then one of our pictures blips. So we apologize if you're getting that on your stream. You may not be getting it, but as we look at each other, like David just, twisted and buzzed. Les didn't, but as we can tell, the sound is fine. So if you're getting us on the podcast, you won't hear it. If you're seeing it, comment section, you go ahead and let us know if you see that. But hopefully it's not. Hopefully it's an in-house thing with StreamYard or YouTube or whichever one you have. It's got to be coming somehow into StreamYard. So apologize for that up front. If you do see it, we are aware of it, and hopefully you're not getting that where it goes out. We do have a lot to talk about here today, guys, when it comes to the Royals and Cole Ragans. He hits the injured list. David, I'll start with you. It hadn't been vintage Cole Ragans each time this year, but the hope was that he was going to get past the leg injury and be vintage Cole Ragans, and we know how much they're leaning on their pitching. How much does this hurt their chances?
Well, in a lot of ways, it's not that big of a deal because he hasn't been good for so long. The last really good stretch, the first 4 starts of the year, he was excellent. And, that's great, which is what you wanted. But then he struggled. He was hurt. He had groin issues. He had cramps, all that stuff. And now he's got the shoulder issue. So in some ways it's like, well, okay, he was actually by numbers their worst starter this year. So in that respect, yeah. But I wrote this morning that if the Royals are going to go where they want to go, they need 2024 Cole Ragans to lead that way. And when he's on the mound, you can at least hope that he can get back to that. He's not going to be that because he's not pitching. And so from that perspective, it's bad. He's their ace. And I've seen a lot of people kind of talk down on the fact that he is the ace, but the truth is he is. he started game 1 of the postseason, was good in the postseason. He was 4th in the AL Cy Young vote. This is not a fluke, and so it's a big deal to miss that. They need to figure out a way. It's obviously, last night notwithstanding, Kris Bubic becoming what he's become this year has taken some of that sting away, because they've kind of got 2024 Cole Ragans in Kris Bubic, who they didn't have last year. But the offense isn't good enough to not pitch, and losing a potential elite starter is huge for them.
One thing I'll address, there's some pity folks that are pretty good. The only video issue I'm experiencing is Soren's basketball shirt. Apparently, that's the problem right there. And then third string armchair. The only thing I'm seeing is male pattern baldness. So
That's not a pattern. That's stone.
You know
cold
what?
baldness.
That is calling me out specifically here, because one person's completely bald and one is wearing a hat. And I will tell you right now, I don't have the back. The back of my head's fine. It's just the front.
just the front. Okay. All right. Good to know. And I'm a mystery because I'm wearing a hat today. So yeah,
The best head of hair is wearing a hat on this podcast.
I think to your point about the ace, David, you know, I know Chris Bubich has pitched like the ace this year, but we just saw Chris Bubich go up against the Yankees, and guess what? The road to the World Series goes through the Yankees. So,
yeah,
you know, it is. They needed Cole Ragans. I mean, I talked to Eno Saros from The Athletic, who does a lot of analytics breakdowns on pitching, and you know, he had a ranking of the pitchers, what they will be the rest of the year, and he put Chris Bubich at 44.
Yeah.
And that's still pretty good. There's 150 starting pitchers in Major League Baseball. 44 still puts you like in the top half of the number twos, right? And this is a projection for what he's going to do the rest of the year, not what he has done to this point. And so, you know, he kind of went out and backed up Eno Saros last night. I mean, the Yankees are a different animal.
Mhm.
And I think any idea that losing Cole Ragans doesn't hurt this team is not the case, right? This is a giant loss. Andy Rogers reporting that this is not going to be a short stay on the IL. Hey, that could mean this is headed for surgery, right? This could be he's done for the year. And he is the guy with Eno Saros, by the way, had Cole Ragans at number 11 before the injury. He's got the best stuff on the team. This is a giant loss.
It is a giant loss. You know, we live in a generation of Major League Baseball where, I mean, Cole Ragans is 27. He's had 2 Tommy Johns, and yet he's our ace. I mean, you can come back from injuries like that. You can come back from surgeries like that and be even better. I think the one guy I would say going back was remember the name Steve Carsey, who came up with the Blue Jays, had Tommy John, and then came up with the Yankees and was throwing harder and developed a cutter and a slider and was so much better. But this, of course, not his elbow, it's his shoulder. It's rotator cuff kind of issue. And so when you prepare very well with your ace, and he goes on a rehab assignment, you're kid gloving this guy. And then when you pull him from that because there's a little bit of a setback, and then he is okay, and then he comes back and starts, and then his arm just won't recover. I feel like this is a bad sign. I mean, I don't want the guy to get hurt. I hope any more tests come back where he just needs a little bit longer of a rest. That would be great. It just doesn't feel that way. And if it doesn't feel that way, I like your comment. The road to the World Series goes through the Yankees. And these first 2 games, the Royals just look like there's no chance right now. The way they're playing, Bubich has been dealing, Cameron's been dealing, and both of them, Bubich was leaving the ball up a little bit, tried to sneak a fastball by Aaron Judge, and they had to stop I-70 traffic. He hit the ball so far. So it's a big sign and a big pain if Cole Ragans doesn't pitch the rest of the season, or he comes back in August, September when the Royals are completely out of it.
Yeah. It's a giant setback. And how do they turn? What's the plan, for the Royals now? Like we know that, okay, you had 6 starters. We've been talking about that. Do you pitch 6 guys? Who comes out of the rotation? Michael Lorenzen pops back in, and he pitched well last time, David. So the immediate answer is it's Michael Lorenzen and it's Noah Cameron. We saw it, maybe a little bit of a reality check with Noah Cameron. We all knew he wasn't going to have a sub-1 ERA for the whole year. Eno, I'll mention again, Saros was not high on Noah Cameron. He's like, the stuff plus is not good, which would not have if he'd have said, yeah, he's just kind of an average guy. We all probably would have agreed looking at his minor league numbers, right? The fastball's not over the top. If they said he doesn't have an incredible breaking ball, like I don't think we'd have been upset. I think the expectation was, okay, here's an innings eater. But then when he comes out and has a 1 ERA, he's almost a victim of his own success. So I don't want people to get down on that assessment of him. But, that's a big drop-off. If we're basically saying Cole Ragans to Noah Cameron, it hasn't looked like it. But now that they've written the book and guys take him serious, that is a big drop-off. But it's just those 5. If they got to turn someplace else in the organization, when somebody else goes down, where do they turn, David?
I mean, right now there are 2 options. One's Rich Hill, who is 45, right? 45, 44.
Yeah.
Which he's pitched well in Omaha. So there's that. And then one is Kyle Wright, who is working back from his own shoulder injury. And then I think he had a hamstring. Is that what set him back this year? I think it was in April. He went the opposite way of Cole Ragans. He went arm to leg, and Ragans went leg to arm. But so those are the two options right now. And, Luinder Avila was an option, but he's out with a shoulder injury himself. Kyle Wright just had I believe it was his second, maybe it was his third Omaha rehab start. I can't remember if the first one before that was in AA. He got lit up a little bit, but he pitched and he's healthy, and that's important for him. But I think what's really interesting, Rich Hill has an opt-out on is the Sunday the 15th? Yeah. He has an opt-out on Sunday if he's not on the big league roster. I wonder a little bit if the Royals don't feel like they can lose their starting pitching depth. And I wonder if Rich Hill comes up and maybe he takes Cameron's spot or Lorenzen's spot. And I don't know that that's the right decision, but it might be the right decision to them in terms of depth. So that's an interesting thing to watch out for, because let's see, if Cameron pitched on Tuesday, Sunday would be his day. It could very well be, hey, sorry, man. It's a numbers game for you, and you had a bad start, which would stink for him, quite frankly. But those are the two options in house right now. Steven Zobak, who I thought could progress this year, got hurt. He's coming back, but he got hurt. He's not ready. Henry Williams went from AA to AAA and got lit up so much he went back to AA. Thomas Hatch, I guess you could give him an emergency start. He's been kind of okay in AAA. The metrics are good, but the results aren't. There's not much on this team that you can turn to. I say that. I think a lot of teams would love to have Rich Hill in AAA ready to go. I think a lot of teams would love to have a rehabbing Kyle Wright ready to go. But still, that they went from having a little depth to having there's now no margin for error. And 6 starters, everybody was like, oh, it's a great problem to have. They don't have that problem anymore. Now they've got to figure out how to get more depth.
Yeah, the Royals farm system wasn't highly ranked coming into this year, and now it's graduated out Jack Caglione and Noah Cameron. So it takes a hit even more. And David did a great job running through. There doesn't seem to be any option other than Rich Hill is in the minors, but I kind of don't think of him as a system guy. He is, a veteran guy that they're trying, and he's pitched all right. And I think he could probably eat you 5 innings, here and there less, but it is really this squad on the field right now, right? Like, is this team good enough? Or does Kyle, I don't even think Kyle Wright, I don't even think anyone's thinking about him as a starter. Like, I think they're thinking about him as a couple inning guy on the top end. That's how he's pitching right now. They're making no attempt to stretch him out down in the minor leagues. Like, they legitimately do not appear to have an answer. It seems like it's all in that clubhouse. I suppose that could work as a rallying cry for those guys, right? Like, hey, it's us. Here we are. We got to do it. That sounds rah-rah, but I'm sure that's what's being said in that clubhouse right now, right?
Yeah, probably. And unfortunately, rallying cries don't always mean that you're going to pitch better. There's 2 things. Number one, I would reiterate everything that David said. The only thing that I think the Royals have to watch for is you can't pull a panic button and call a guy like Ben Kudrna up, who's not probably quite ready for the big leagues just yet. I think he's almost ready. But and that's just even an example. I'm not just completely locking up on him. So you don't want to force a guy in this situation. And it's interesting how we were talking about depth, and now we're talking about, oh man, this isn't great. The other thing too is that one of the reasons we're in here isn't just injuries. One of the reasons this is such a bad deal is because the offense has still continued throughout the whole year to perform poorly. I mean, on the last road trip in St. Louis, they scored 10 runs one game, 7 another. They came home, they went to Chicago and scored 7 and won a game 7-4, 7-5, maybe I think it was. And so there's a little bit of breath right there, but yet they scored 2 runs against the Yankees. Granted, it was Max Fried. I understand, and they didn't hit a lot of balls hard. And then last night, they faced a good buzzsaw on a guy that has a lot of strikeouts. And so that's got to be part of – they have to shoulder some of the blame as well, the offense. And so it is in this clubhouse right now. I agree that Rich Hill's probably a guy that probably should come up and someone go to the bullpen just to give him a shot to see what it is, because we have to figure things out. With only 2 games back in the wild card, that's not a position where the Royals need to throw in the towel and automatically, okay, we're going to let this thing go. We're not going to pursue it. They're still in the hunt. The problem is it would, like you said, Soren, the whole rah-rah thing, if the offense does not somehow miraculously pick up the runs per game, and I know Jack came up and they moved to 5 runs per game, but is Jack Caglione right now really the answer to giving the Royals a full run per game and put them in a position to start winning games? I don't think so. He has a learning curve to get through. So bottom line, this is the clubhouse you're dealing with, and these are the people, except for maybe a Rich Hill type situation.
Yeah. I mean, they can look around and say, okay, it's all us, but that's great. That's great that there's, like you said, the battle cry is fantastic, but then still somebody's got to step up and get it done. And right now, they're clearly not doing it with the bats. They really, really need the bats to get going right now. That's one of the things for sure. All right, we'll take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll talk more about what the trade market looks like for the Royals and whether or not they should even be looking to add after you hear from our friends, David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. David Starnes Allstate Insurance, serving the Kansas City area and all throughout the Midwest. With David Starnes Allstate, it's not just about fender benders. Beyond traditional safeguards, enjoy perks like roadside assistance for unexpected breakdowns, transportation expense coverage when your car is in the shop, auto replacement protection to keep you on the road in style, and much more. You can give Dave and his crew a call at 816-781-7331. Visit them online or stop into any of their locations, including North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. David Starnes, Allstate Insurance.
Green Light Dispensary, voted Kansas City's best dispensary and your go-to for quick, convenient service. With 4 locations across the Kansas City area, we're never far away. Our drive-through and express windows make it easy to get in, get out, and get on with your day. Our award-winning service is powered by a team of experts dedicated to making your experience seamless and enjoyable. It's no wonder we've been voted the best. Convenient locations, fast service, knowledgeable staff. That's the Green Light difference. Visit us today.
Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. With free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty, Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. All right, how about it? The trade market, David, where, it ain't pretty. I mean, I was looking through some of the names, and we don't need to go through every single pitcher that's out there, but if they would turn around and say, okay, Rich Hill's not the answer, Lorenzen struggles, we need a guy, is there even anyone to look at going and getting?
There's a couple. I mean, right, like the Orioles have Zach Eflin, who is a free agent at the end of the year. If they end up selling, sure, that makes a lot of sense. Rental non-elite pitchers aren't terribly costly, so I think that could work. That could be fine. The White Sox brought in Adrian Hauser. We saw him on, was that Saturday that he pitched against the Royals? Maybe he's a guy they target. I don't know that he's any better than Lorenzen, so I don't know that I would necessarily go that route. But you could also look at Andrew Heaney from the Pirates. If the Angels end up selling, which right now they're an if, Tyler Anderson's out there. Blue Jays have some guys. The Rangers have some guys. The Rays have some guys. The Red Sox don't really have anybody. The Braves, if you want to get real crazy, Chris Sale, but that elite rental guy is still cost, and so I'm not sure that that's worth it. The Diamondbacks have a couple guys, Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly. So there are some options out there, but there's 2 problems. One, is it worth it? And for a lot of the guys, are they better than what the Royals have? And 2, there's right now, I count 6 teams that are definitely selling, and that doesn't include the Orioles, who I think will, but I don't think that they've decided that either. So there's just not anybody ready to say, okay, here are some good players for you to fill out your team because we're done with this season. It's the extra wild card, and there's just so much parity in baseball right now in the middle of the pack. It's very difficult to find a trade partner at this point.
Yeah, it is. And I've been talking to Jeff Pass, and I'll talk to Jeff today on the program. And all year it's been like, well, who's selling? Right? Like the extra wild card keeps everybody in. So it's really hurt the trade deadline. Corbin Burns getting the Tommy John surgery. Maybe that bumps the Diamondbacks into thinking with as thick and tough as the NL West is, maybe it's time to look to the future. is this a team though, Les, that you would invest, you would pull from future assets to try to put into this year? Has this team proven that it's worthy of giving up the future for now?
It's a great question. I think a month ago that would have been a little more of a positive answer for me, but right now I just don't think so. And you have a lot of guys in the minor leagues that would be tradable, that would catch some people's eye. But one, do you really want to give that up considering the current state of the Royals? And number two, if they're not performing, what really are you going to get out of it? Like, I was just looking at even some position players, and I hadn't looked at his name for a long time. And all of a sudden I look up Gavin Cross. Gavin Cross is hitting 184. At least I think if that's an updated stat. And so there are a lot of pitchers that are underperforming this year. It's just this weird explosion of negativity almost, that these scenarios just don't pan out. And I think you'd mentioned Lorenzen, or David had mentioned Michael Lorenzen. That's almost your guy right now, that if you don't want to or can't give up a lot, you put the guy that you're interested in trading for or buying, and you put him up against Lorenzen. Is he really any better? And if it's not a front liner, like I just looked up Chris Bassett. Boy, I'd love to have a guy like Chris Bassett. He's having a great year with Toronto. Well, Toronto's only 4 games out, and they're in the wild card hunt. And so they're not going to get rid of Chris Bassett, or at least not from the Royals, unless they were to get some serious stuff in return. So, yeah, again, it's a tough situation. I don't know that there's really anybody out there, at least in my opinion. There are guys available, but I don't know there's enough out there to say, man, we could really swing a deal and this could really help us. I just don't see it right now.
Yeah. Is this a team? Let's just get to it. Should they be selling, David?
It's such I mean, at this point, I still say no. I still say, what's the point? Why make that declaration? Because it's so early. That last time we said they should sell.
Well, can I answer that question?
Yeah.
And have you chew on it, because I'm interested in your answer. Because of the fact that there's only like 6 teams that everybody would say definitively is on the sell side, and because your system is thin, right? Like, is this the opportunity, if you're going to be a mathematically driven team, is this maybe the rare opportunity, something that you hope to not be in a position where you can look at it and go, and there are only 2 out of the wild card, and there's only 2 teams they've got to get by, 1 team in between them and the final spot. So it's not 5 teams, which it was, by the way, at a game, just 4 or 5 teams that they had to get by, so there's a couple teams right behind them as well. So it's congested. So I know that's a tough pitch to make to your fans, particularly when you're trying to get a new stadium deal done. But mathematically, isn't now the time to sell? Like, if everybody thinks they're in it, everybody still wants to be there, and there's only 5 or 6 teams and they're the absolute bottom feeders, wouldn't you theoretically have the best opportunity to maximize your returns if you jumped on it right now?
Theoretically, that's 100% accurate. I think that's a really good point, because yes, if you sell now, you're one of 7 teams who are open for business. The flip side, no, it's 2 flip sides. So maybe it's not a flip side. Maybe it's a triangle. I don't know. But if first of all, who are the Royals selling? I think it's Seth Lugo is the number 1 answer. I wonder what the return is there, because he's either, if you're trading for Seth Lugo, one of 2 things is going to happen. You either have him for 3 months, or you have him at $15 million on a contract you don't want next year. The only way he opts in is if he's bad or hurt. And so I think that lowers the value on a trade. He is the number 1 trade chip, and he probably has lower value. You could trade Carlos Estevez. I don't know that there's a lot that closers haven't been bringing back a lot of return. The closers like him, Lucas Erceg brought back a good return for the A's because he had 5 years of team control after that. I don't know what Estevez is bringing back. Who else are you moving? You're not. They talked about Salvi. What was that, 2 years ago? It must have been 2023. Okay, that's fine, but Salvi's not hitting. I don't think a team wants him right now. I mean, you might take him as like this veteran leader, but even if he was willing to be traded, I don't think there's a lot of value there.
Let's go a step further. Let me inject into it. Like, if the plan is Jack Caglione in right field all the time, okay. But if it's him at first base, you have him and Vinny Pasquantino. I mean, I know nobody ever wants to talk about the core names, but those are the ones that bring the most in return. You mentioned Salvi. If you're buying, we've talked about it. Do you move one of the catchers to add to the team? but maybe, you know, if it's not Salvi, it's Freddie Fermin. I think this is an opportunity if you are, and you have to be bold and you have to be willing to take some arrows, but it could be an opportunity to set your team up the way you want it to be for the next few years, right? And maybe even towards 27 as opposed to 26, which I've already seen some comments in the chat room. People are like, I like how it looks in 26. Yeah, you do, because you think Cole Ragans is going to be back healthy. But rotator cuff scares, it might be career ending. Might be like, oh, he's a junk baller now and he comes back and has to reinvent himself. It looks real different without that ace up at the top of the rotation. So, like, do we need to discuss, David? And then that's the second time I've interrupted you. And I'll stop after this. You know, like,
will you?
Big picture philosophy type trades. Could that be the path?
Yeah, I was actually going to get to Vinny. I think that he is an interesting. I'm just joking with you. I was, but he's an interesting piece because you can't trade him midseason if the Royals are winning. He is too big a part of that, and I think he's too big a part of the culture of this team. If they're not winning, though, you can do that. You can make that move. The question I have, and I don't know the answer to this, what's the value of a 27-year-old first base only, non-elite but solid bat? And I think that I wonder what that brings back. And then I don't really care about the fan reaction, because the way you get fans back is to win. It doesn't matter. Like, if you you might lose them for 3 months, but if they come back next year and they're better because they traded Vinny Pasquantino, people forget. They'll come back. It's fine. But how does it impact the clubhouse? And if you're not getting back a big enough return for a guy who probably has some value in the clubhouse that he doesn't necessarily show on the field to who needs a first baseman? There's like 4 teams, and I can't think of one right off the top of my head right now. But if that value in return doesn't equal the clubhouse value plus the actual value, I don't know that you make that move in season. I think I've always thought that the Vinny trade makes more sense in December than in July. But if the deal is there and they're 34 and 34 right now, if they're 38 and 45 in 2 weeks, I don't even know if that math makes sense, but pretend if that's where they are, okay, you're not breaking up a winning team. You're making a move to help you in the future. So I think that does make some sense. The other thing to think about, and this is a huge picture, and this is probably the last year they can really do this, they're on a 2028 timeline with Bobby Witt Jr. because his team options start after 2030, and maybe I'm a year early, but if they get to 2028 and they're not in a position Bobby Witt Jr. likes, and he says, I'm not, because he's never going to exercise the options, right? Like if he's in Kansas City
he's going now, yes. The same thing you said about Seth Lugo. If he is, something's gone horribly wrong.
Right. And so if Bobby Witt Jr. is in Kansas City beyond 2030, it's on a new deal. And you've got to know if he's willing to sign that after 2028, because the trade value after 2028 is huge. And you want to keep Bobby Witt Jr. his whole career. That's the idea. You don't give a guy up to 300, whatever it is, million, if you don't want to keep him for his whole career. And they need to make sure that they're in a position after 2028 that Bobby Witt Jr. says, I want to be here for forever. And so that means that I don't think they can make this. I don't think they could sell at 500 next year. I think they can this year. This is the last year they can do that. And they still have to get it right, because if they get it wrong, that could really cause a problem. Vinny's not the best example because they've got Caglione ready to go. But so that's another variable there that the Royals have to think about.
Vinny Pasquantino and Bobby Witt are pretty tight. And like, you know, if you move a Vinny, and I want to be clear, the three of us are not saying move Vinny Pasquantino.
Right.
Les hasn't even commented on it yet, by the way, first of all. So Les definitely isn't, but David and I aren't saying that. We're just talking about pieces that could. Michael Garcia is a name to mention because shortstop is his primary position. That could be something, you know, that you look at as well, you know, that he's worth more. We talked about this last time in trade that he is term, but the chemistry part's a big part of it too, Les. Like you run the risk of blowing up the chemistry.
Yeah, it is a big part of it. And I'm glad you mentioned Michael Garcia, because I feel like he is kind of a dark horse. Even the Royals are in this seemingly dismal situation right now with these injuries and lack of offense. He's a guy that is playing well enough that it could bring you something if there is a push or make this team better. next year. Now, who for? That's probably going to play itself out as the season goes on a little bit more. But yeah, I'm not moving Vinny. It's interesting how in fans, and I love Royals fans, and fans in general, every sport, every city, fans are fickle because they go on emotion, and it's this is our player. How could you move him? But then if it's a great return and the people you get are doing really well, there is a quick memory loss. It's funny how that works. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about Salvi in our next topic coming up. But yeah, Vinny to me is not movable. But I do think Maikel Garcia can really bring a lot in trade if he continues to go at this pace and have this resurgence. He's proving that he's figured it out. He's good defensively in the infield wherever he plays. I like him at third. I like him at short. That's fine. But I just think, a guy like Vinny, I mean, he's raised his average over 100 points in a period of a month and a half. That's hard to do when you're at like 110 to 130 at bats. It's really hard to do. And so they probably would have a few more wins had he gotten hot a little bit sooner, but that's just the part of the game. So there's still some pieces in play. Some aren't as obvious as others, but I think Maikel Garcia is really one that we could really be dangling out there if they need to get something better.
Again, I want to stress, I know nobody wants to hear this, but the question is, if you look at your team and say, we can't get there.
Yeah.
I think it's entirely possible. We were questioning whether or not they could get there when Cole Ragans was, we thought, going to be at the front of the push. And now that he's not, and then also let's talk about the psychological part. I do think there is when Noah Cameron, and by the way, we can talk about Noah Cameron. We're going to react to the Yankees series here in a minute. I love the way he fought. Right. And I actually think that was a positive, that game. But there is also a little bit of, okay, the invincibility's gone. Right. It's now not every game he's 6-1. Right. Chris Bubich got roughed up a little bit. A little bit of the invincibility's gone. And the advanced metrics, I not to mention Eno Saris again, but I think he does great work, say that they're not going to be that good moving forward. So you've already gotten a better version of them that you're probably going to get moving forward. And now you take Cole Ragans out of the mix, and you weren't even there. You don't have a 5-game cushion that you're sitting on. So, that's why we're discussing this. And I'm with you on the Vinny Pasquantino thing, Les. I love his hitting style. And everybody kind of comes and goes, but he's locking back in, looking like he's going to be another 100 RBI guy because he does such a great job of getting guys in from third base. And he handles the bat really well. That's a term that, is your era. Less, right? Like when it was less of a scoring and it wasn't all analytics and it wasn't all loft and X and velo, guy on third, I got to get him in. Can I lift the ball in the air and get it deep enough to get him home? He does that, right? Yeah. And he does that. Can I hit the ball to the right side? He does that. He's not just, take and rake and pull everything. And I that's something he talked about with Randy and I on one of our Kaufman Corner podcasts in the offseason. We had him on, and that he was wanting to get back to hitting to all fields. And I feel like it's all kind of coming together with him. I think David's right. What does just a defense-only first baseman who probably grades out metrically is not a great defensive first baseman bring you? But there's the incredible teammate, like good guy to have on the flight, man. You don't get on the flight going, I got to sit next to this jackass, right? You get on the flight happy. I would think he's a great guy to roam around with. He's got a good sense of humor. He handles the bat. He does the little things. And again, I'm not trying to sell him, but I think that reputation's out there. And maybe now, I agree with David in paper. Seems like it'd be better to trade him in December when you're putting your plan together. But if there is a team, and David said, a couple teams that are interested in a first baseman, could the desperate nature of it and all those intangibles when they're in the middle of a fight actually make him more valuable and more attractive now as opposed to in December when everybody's building their perfect 26?
Yeah, I'm looking right now at the first baseman because I was curious. I knew there were some. Giants have a 67 weighted runs created plus at first base. I think they'd take Vinny.
Yeah.
The Mariners are at 75. They need Vinny.
Yeah.
The Royals are at 89. Hang on. But there are teams.
Yeah, but that was the point. Like the Rangers were desperate for a reliever, and they gave Cole Ragans for Aroldis Chapman. Right. That is sometimes where it will happen. Correct.
Yeah. I mean, that's the hope. And the other thing too, and I'm backtracking a little bit on what I said, but JJ Piccolo has made some really good trades. Even oh gosh, first name Quas, Jose Quas.
Yeah.
For Nelson Velasquez. Nelson Velasquez ended up nothing, but 14 home runs in 2 months for a middle reliever who's also doing nothing now. I mean, he's done a really nice job of getting more than you expect for guys, and so for a guy who you expect a lot of, maybe he will get more on that too. You're right.
Yeah. I'd be thrilled less if Vinny Pasquantino's a Royal forever, right? But it does mean you pretty much clog up at some point. I gotta believe. I will point this out. Keith Law was real optimistic about him being effective in right field, right? And he said he moves well, he's athletic. He said he's got the big arm. If he can do that, he said that's the more valuable position. Again, he was brought here to hit the ball over the wall, not play defense anywhere. Really,
Right.
like the defense is the next thing. But you would potentially clog up that first base DH spot, but if you're moving on from Salvador Perez, okay. And are those is that the best? Is the chemistry of Vinny Pasquantino worth way more than what his actual production, which is very good, worth?
Yes, he absolutely is, because Vinny, with his personality, his willingness to win, the way he plays and the way he talks, he challenges people without getting in their face. He holds people accountable because he holds himself accountable. And the best leaders in sports, in business, in life go first. They listen well. They hold themselves accountable all the time, and they can look at you and say something without actually saying something. And that's a clubhouse. Having a tightly knit clubhouse and a club, regardless of what your record is, having a tightly knit clubhouse is everything. I was having this conversation of all people with my bride the other day about how relationships can really make a big deal. I was also having it with a friend of mine too, where when someone encourages you and holds you accountable at the same time, you want to, not literally, but you want to break your back for somebody on the field. You want to get after it. But when someone talks a lot, but then doesn't back it up, or just decides, well, I'm hitting good. And I've played with these guys, even in my short stint in the big leagues. There was one guy, especially in that clubhouse, that he was a really good hitter, but he didn't want to help anybody else. And every time he got hurt, all of a sudden he would limp his way to first base on one leg. But then as he was coming back after the trainer pulled him off the field, he was limping with the other leg because he didn't want to hit below 300. And so this is what Vinny brings, the intangible that a guy like Vinny Pasquantino brings, that makes me feel like that kind of guy's not tradable, unless he got tired of it after 2 or 3 years and we were still having the same conversations about a bad offense, or this wonderful pitching that we have kind of goes to crud and now we're dealing with a broken pitching staff. Unless we get to that, Vinny Pasquantino is a glue to that clubhouse. Add to the offensive output that he's bringing, I just don't see how you could move him.
Yeah, I agree. He is such a presence. I could move him. I don't want to lie. I mean, I think you do anything to make the baseball team better. But I think your point is a really good one. It's going to take a whole lot to move him because of just how valuable he is for this club,
and probably more than he would bring back, to be honest.
Yeah,
which is why that's kind of where I land. I'd move him, but I don't think it's possible.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Don't forget, if you're hurt, go ahead, Les.
I'm sorry. All I was going to say was really quickly, if I'm doing poorly, and look, I know I'm in the big leagues, I'm getting paid a lot of money. If I'm doing poorly, just intellectually and my love of the game, I know that I need to work hard and I need to improve if I'm struggling. But a guy like Vinny Pasquantino makes me want to put everything on the line every single day. Just watching that guy play makes me wish I was 30 years younger.
Yeah, it's tough to move a leader, right? And he is clearly a leader on this team. Listen, if you've been hurt in an accident, our friends at Northland Injury Law have you covered. Northland Injury Law, Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers, serving KC for more than 40 years, voted Kansas City's #1 accident lawyers, helping people with serious injuries from car accidents, work accidents, falls, and other personal injuries. Northland Injury Law doesn't get paid unless they get money for their client. Don't wait, get compensated now. If you have a case, text HURT to 22222. That's HURT to 22222, or call 816-400-HURT. That's 816-400-4878. The choice of a lawyer is an important one and should not be based solely upon advertisements. David Starnes Allstate Insurance. Elevate your coverage, elevate your confidence, and drive worry-free. Covering all the important things in your world. Home, business, life, and even the fun stuff, as well as your motorcycle, boat, ATV, and you name it. Get with Dave, and he'll get you covered. You can give Dave and his crew a call at 816-781-7331. Visit them online or stop into any of their locations, North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. Don't put those insurance needs off any longer. Get with Dave today. He'll give you peace of mind for the things in your life most important to you. David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. All right, let's talk about the Yankee series. Reaction to it, David. One more still to go as we record here. You can be a part of the conversation, by the way, if you're listening on the podcast. We stream live at 8:30 a.m. on Thursdays, 8:30 a.m. Central. Any reaction to what we're seeing against the Yankees?
I'd like to pass on. No, it's not pretty. Look, I wrote this morning. The Yankees are both better and a bad matchup. And that's a really bad combination. Like last year, I think, remember the Twins and Red Sox were particularly bad matchups for the Royals for the same reason the Yankees are a bad matchup. The difference is I think the Yankees, I don't think the Twins and Red Sox were considerably better than the Royals last year. They were just a bad matchup. The Yankees are also considerably better. It's just, that's what it comes down to, and you've got to play a perfect game basically to beat them when you're in that situation. And any team that is the lesser team and a bad matchup, you have to play a perfect game to win. And the Royals have played 5 games against them, and they haven't played a single perfect game. and that's why they're 0-5. It's not that they can't beat them, and they could win today. And if you're listening tomorrow, you go, "Oh, they lost 12-2." Well, they hadn't lost 12-2 yet. All right, so calm down. But it's a tough go for them against this team, and which is too bad because if they get to the playoffs, which I still think is possible, if you don't think it's possible, that's fine, but I think you're wrong. I think it's very possible the Royals make the playoffs. Probable, no, but possible. And if they get there and they face the Yankees, I'd be shocked if they win a game. But that's the big problem there. Some team could take out the Yankees. There's probably a team the Yankees have that are a bad matchup for them that they could lose to. They lost the Dodgers. They're beatable. But that's what's happened this series. They've been the worst team, and they are outmatched. It's a terrible combination.
Yeah. What was your takeaway so far from 2 of the first 3 against the Yankees?
Well, like I said before, they almost had to stop I-70 traffic when Judge hit that 500-foot blast. That's the furthest home run I think I've seen hit live. But really, it's a gift right now for the Royals to play a team like the Yankees, this Yankees team, for 2 reasons. One, because it lets you know what you need. And number 2, it lets you know exactly where you're at. And so you probably need to understand that this is where you should be. This is how far you are from them. And you need to make the changes. You need to do a whole lot of things different. And so as the trade deadline approaches, we've talked about should they, shouldn't they. If they don't, if there's not a lot of moves are made, that's fine. Because again, we've talked about, well, is this really a team that you really need to invest that way in? Okay, fine. If they don't, probably the right move. However, there's a really good chance that the Royals are not going to hold up unless something drastically happens and this offense changes. Then it's just not going to be able to hold up. And the Yankees really aren't the only team that is a bulldozer that they would have to get through. And so, unfortunately, the Yankees bring the Royals a pretty large reality check. It was tough to watch. I was out there Tuesday night. It was really tough. I'm watching some good at-bats by Yankees hitters, watching some bad at-bats. Again, it's Max Fried. He's having an incredible year. I think Jack Caglione was really the only one to hit the ball really, really hard against him, and he lined out to Jazz Chisholm, who had moved over to the shortstop position. Other than that, there wasn't much. But even so, those are still guys you got to beat because that's the opposing pitcher. So it's good to see where you're at against a really good team.
Yeah, Chris Bubich, Noah Cameron. A little bit of reality check there, David.
Yeah, Cameron for sure. I think that, again, like you said, he's not a sub-1 guy. Everybody said that.
Nor is Bob Gibson, by the way.
Right. Yeah. Nobody's a sub-1 guy. Yeah. I think that he's probably in his best year. He has 32 starts. I think if you have a 3.75 ERA from him, you think, oh, that was a really good year for him, which is valuable. That's not a knock. I think people sometimes see that as a knock, but just because it was 0.85 doesn't mean 375 wouldn't be awesome. So yeah, a little bit of a reality check, better team. He made and honestly, Cameron didn't pitch that poorly overall, but when you make those mistakes against that team, the line gets bad.
That's
I
it.
mean, it just does. And he had some things go against him, like that timeout called that probably shouldn't have been called, but it was. Don't make that pitch. Chris Bubich last night. I mean, I wrote this morning too. That second inning probably should have been 1 run at most. That was a terrible call against Chisholm, but he also didn't perform after that. He left pitches in the middle of the plate, and you can't make those mistakes against the Yankees that you can make against almost every other team. And that's the difference too. I mean, you face the Tigers, have the best record in baseball. You can pitch the way Chris Bubich pitched last night and go 6 innings with 2 runs allowed against the Tigers. You just can. It's not a knock against the Tigers. It's a compliment to the Yankees. They are so incredible with their plate appearances that they run your pitch count up. They don't miss mistakes. It's everything that every team wants their hitters to be. It's just so frustrating when you're on the other end of it. But yeah, I mean, hey, you got to be better to beat that team. And back to the very original point, the Royals have one guy who can beat that team consistently, and he's on the IL now. And that's the big problem. And I mean, maybe Seth Lugo, again, you might be listening tomorrow. Seth Lugo won 7 and gave up 1. All right, fine, whatever. But Cole Ragans is the guy who can do it consistently, and they're missing him now too. And you saw it these first 2 games.
I thought the fact that Noah Cameron gave up 3 and kept battling was a great sign. Les, it's kind of like a boxer. He tasted his own blood and didn't just wilt and quit. There are some fighters that come out and they're managed well and they just beat up on tomato cans, and the first time they run into somebody who can punch them in the face, they don't know how to react. He got punched in the face, and he came back out and threw a 0 up there in the 4th.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a good sign for the kid's toughness.
I agree. And I don't think that the Yankees beat Noah Cameron because they're just world beaters and they're so much better than Noah Cameron. I think that the pitches that were hit were pitches that were elevated. I mean, Bubich, the same thing yesterday. We know that's not Chris Bubich, but some of those pitches were elevated. The 1 inning where he gave up single and then a single and then a single, all of those pitches weren't pitchers' pitches. They were mistakes. Paul Goldschmidt took one the other way. They got 1 up the middle. I think there were 2 up the middle. And again, they were mistakes. And so those are just going to make guys like Noah Cameron and Chris Bubich that much better. It does show you that if you make a mistake against a really good team like the Yankees, you are going to pay for it. But that's Major League Baseball. And so I don't feel like it's this big, oh, welcome to the big leagues. We knew that wasn't Noah Cameron. No, Noah Cameron can still deal. He just hasn't really had an outing yet where he's made that many consistent mistakes at the same time where he's faced that good of a team. And so, again, I just think it's going to make him that much better. I'm not worried necessarily about him or Bubich. Just, oh, well, now we got reality. Now that's what we're going to get. No, I feel like they're still going to deal. They're still going to be themselves as long as they stay healthy. But I'm still pointing all of this back to our lack of offense.
Okay, let's finish with this subject, and that is Matt Quatraro. Some of the fans starting to rumble about Matt Quatraro. David, do you have any reaction for those fans? Do you agree with some of that assessment?
I don't agree. I think that I mean, do I have a reaction? That's funny. Yes, I do. Look, here's the thing. People want something. People want the closure of something to blame, and it's very difficult to say, well, we've got to blame all 26 guys or 22 of the 20 or whatever. It's the guy in charge. And there have been some decisions that I don't always agree. I don't always agree with Matt Quatraro. The bunt on Friday night with Michael Garcia, I hated it. I hated bunting your number 3 hitter. I also understood it. And I don't think Matt Quatraro ever, I shouldn't say ever. I'm sure he has, but rarely are decisions made that I look at and go, I don't get it. It makes 0 sense to me. Why would you do that? Why would you pull Noah Cameron facing the 4, 5, 6 hitters for the 3rd time and the 5th time in 2 weeks? Well, because they're facing the 4, 5, 6 hitters for the 3rd time and the 5th time in 2 weeks. That's why you do it. Did it work? No. Did the players perform? No. The bullpen gave up 3 runs in that first game of the doubleheader. if they pull Noah Cameron in this after 6 in that first game of the doubleheader, and John Schreiber throws a scoreless inning, and Taylor Clark throws a scoreless inning, and Carlos Estevez throws a scoreless inning, nobody cares. And yes, the results are what matter, but it's about what the players are doing. And I appreciate that Matt Quatraro goes out there and makes decisions based on an actual reason. And it's not, I don't know. It's crazy to me. It doesn't, the idea that everything he does is wrong. I saw somebody, this is crazy. I'm not going to name who it was or where, because I don't want to call anybody out or draw attention to it as much as even though I am. Somebody said, I don't blame Noah Cameron for the 2-0 pitch to Aaron Judge. I blame Q. What?
Okay.
What?
Yeah. All right.
Blame Matt Quatraro because Noah Cameron threw a 92 mile per hour, I don't know what it was, cookie down the middle to Aaron Judge. Okay.
Yeah.
At that point, you've told on yourself.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't. I think that a manager is not above criticism, but I think that there's a way to go too far, and I think people have gone way too far on this.
Yeah. How do you see anything not to like about Matt Quatraro, Les?
If I had to nitpick a little bit, sometimes his love for Salvi, I just think that there's this loyalty there, which I completely get and understand. I love Salvi too, but when he is struggling that bad, I do think that sometimes you got to sit him, not just because you're resting him, but you got to sit him because he's hurting your offense. Sure, he can still pop a home run every now and then. We see that in Chicago. We see it, last night, and he does those things every now and then. But overall, he's still hitting 230. He's still making Jack Caglione lead off a lot. And Jack Caglione, not just because he leads off, doesn't mean that if he doesn't, he's going to hit 340. I mean, we understand that. I get that. But I think sometimes the love for Salvi goes a bit too far. He puts him a little bit before the team. Maybe the other thing is he'll like the bunt that David was talking about with Garcia. I love players managers. My favorite manager of all time was a AAA manager, Brian Graham, who, when we were in Buffalo, New York, when I was the one season in the Indians organization at the time, I know Guardians. I don't want to hear it, everybody, but he was a player's manager. It was a lot of hands off, a lot of encouraging, but he defended his players when they needed to be defended. And he would go to the wall for you, but he would also not necessarily single you out, but he would hold guys accountable. And so I want to make sure that he's the guy that's holding guys accountable too, and not over defending. But again, both of those points to me are kind of nitpicky because he can't pitch and he's hired to manage. And when you're managing what you have, and I think he's done a good job of that, I just think oftentimes we overlook the accountability of our favorite players and our lack of offense. And we just, let's just blame the manager. And I think that's a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah, I think so as well. I have no problems with what he's doing. I like your point about Salvador Perez. I think that's a little bit fair, but I also think there's an element of you may have set sail with like, look, we're going with him. And if we go with him, this is what it takes to have him. He wants to play every day. And we either need to make the decision to trade him or we live with what it is, because this is how it has to work with Salvador Perez. So, but I think that's a valid point. But the bullpen usage, everybody's not available every day, every time. And you can't get a guy up in 10 seconds and put him in there. Like, it's a lot more pre-programmed than I think anybody realizes. And
they were really missing Urseg.
Well, they're 500, and look at how much more water they've taken on this year than they did last year. And he still has them at 500, which, to your point, David, is still a position where they could get hot and make a run. So,
well, keep in mind, they were 8-14 and we were saying they need to sell. And then they went 16-2. I'm not saying they'll do it again, but this team is capable of going 16-2. And we know that because we saw it happen.
Yeah.
They will, but it's possible.
They've got some NL teams coming up where the schedule will lighten up a little bit, but it's also, I do look at the schedule and they don't seem to have another one of those runs of 16 of 20 against, bottom feeders, like where they can get healthy. That's one of the things that's concerning. Hey, hit the like button, hit the love button, hit the subscribe button, tell your friends and family about the Kaufman Corner podcast. You should definitely hit it today, because I'm going to tell you, one, we know that neither David nor Les nor I have issues with seizures. And I'm not taking that lightly because I have a friend who does. But if you knew what these guys were looking at during this, we literally have been what we're looking at is each one of us popping on and off, on and off, on and off. It has been a challenge, and both these guys have handled it like absolute masters. So I want you to know that, we said we had some technical issues. We tried to clear it up, couldn't clear it up. We'll try to clear it up for next time. Hopefully nobody saw any of this, but I want to thank David and Les because I look, broadcasting's all I do. I've been doing it for a long time. Today was a bitch. Let me just tell you, it was a challenge. You guys handled it like absolute champs. So I do love it. If you love the Coffin Corner podcast, you can help support us by supporting our great sponsors like David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. If you need help with your insurance, any kind, David Starnes and his crew are absolutely fantastic. Call 816-781-7331. If you've been hurt in an accident, Northland Injury Law has you covered. Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers. You've been hurt in a case, hurt in a crash and have a case, text HURT to 22222 or call 816-400-HURT. Greenlight Dispensary, 15 locations in Missouri and more on the way. Greenlight is the go-to for all your cannabis needs. Tell them you saw Greenlight right here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. And, of course, our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com. For David Lesky, for Les Norman, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Kaufman Corner podcast.